Bramaz, along with 3 soldier tokens and a handful of lands in play. On Braverman's side, you see 6 lands, a Wingmate Rock, and the token alongside with it. Life totals 14-10 in favor of Davis.
Looks good for Jim right now. And again, I think against Mardu tokens, trading 1-for-1 a lot and drawing cards is a pretty good game plan.
And he can do even a little bit better than that, too, with hostilities and some other options that he does have. So it does seem as though the matchup may be favorable here for Jim. Currently up a game, board position looks pretty good here, but he is analyzing things. You do see he has a copy of Jason's Ingenuity in hand. Trying to figure out how to move forward in this situation. One thing about Wingmate Rock, it does match up quite well against Elspeth.
Yes, but I think there might be systemic issues with the matchup on Phillip's side.
Davis very methodical when playing these control decks. We've seen it before. When we were in Providence, the weekend that Ross Merriam almost went back-to-back, Merriam had to get through Davis in the semifinals in Mono Blue Devotion versus Blue-White Control. Merriam, as we know, was able to do that. Davis gave him a heck of a run. Now he's coming into the red zone here with these creatures. We'll see how Braverman elects to block. You have to imagine some blocking will be done.
Yeah, there's no pump spells happening on Jim's deck, so.
So we will see a double block there on Bramaz. Some damage will come through. The Lion King will bite the dust. Davis will tick up his Elspeth. 3 more soldier tokens incoming. Does he have anything else to do for the turn is the question, as Braverman goes down to 6. And you see Jason's Ingenuity. There's a Bramaz in hand as well. He can keep deploying threats to the board if he'd like.
Very odd to see Jim basically transition into a damage race.
Yeah.
Not something you'd think his deck would be that well equipped to do, especially against Wingmate Rock, but Elspeth does what it does.
It's a Bramaz and a passing of the turn. Davis with a last breath in hand. No white mana to cast it just yet, though, as he sits at 14 life. Braverman at 6. Braverman all on tap control. 6 lands available here for Phillip, along with Wingmate Rock and its friend. And we'll see how the Grand Prix New Jersey top 8 competitor would like to move forward.
Very nice run of tournaments.
Yes, making a name for himself, him and his brother.
From North Carolina, I believe.
I believe in that area, yeah.
Nice run for North Carolina.
Not doing bad.
Dylan Donegan, too.
Hordeling Outburst. See if this will resolve. Davis going to consult his hand. One thing about Davis when watching him play, whether he has a counterspell or not, he always will think things through. Never just a snap yes for a spell resolving.
Well, it's important to get into that sort of habit because otherwise you're giving away when you have something and when you don't.
Yeah.
There's more to Magic than just playing the turns right.
You see, he does have a copy of Negate in his hand. Also has a copy of Disdainful Stroke. Now, Stroke, of course, will not come into play right now for this particular spell, but there's nothing saying that Braverman can't say play a land and a Butcher of the Horde.
Well, I think Phil may be down to 1 card in hand. And if that's the case, this is a pretty safe negate.
It looks like he will negate here. So Hordeling Outburst is countered. Now will Braverman go on the attack? Can he afford to go on the attack? It looks like he will. With Wingmate Rock going after Elspeth. A little bit of life gain here.
Find out momentarily what the last card is, but I believe Phillip is dead on the way back if he has nothing. Bramaz is the best block. Bramaz will generate... Blocking Bramaz is the best thing you can do. Bramaz also generates a token. I think 8 points of damage comes across.
The draw for Davis is a copy of Pluto Delta. He will deploy the land. Time to attack with everybody. Not going to wait too long here. All this damage will come through. A shrug of the shoulders, and that's going to do it. Jim Davis is going to win game number 2 here over Phillip Braverman. Blue-white control up 2-0 over Mardu Tokens. As we will now take a look at the sideboards, see exactly what each of these players do have access to. As we are now being informed that Danny Jessup, our Baltimore Standard Open champion during season number 3, gets the job done over Platinum Pro Sam Black. Obs on mid-range. Moving on. We'll be playing the winner of this match.
Very good tournament for those two buddies also.
Yeah. Black with a good run here with his red-white tokens in Standard and Jeskai Ascendancy in Legacy. Didn't get to see much of Sam in the Legacy portion, but his deck was really, really awesome there.
Yeah, Danny Jessup and Jim Davis, I know, worked together for this event. Hang out a lot, flew in together. What a run for those two.
Yeah, they could be playing against each other moving forward. Jim Davis up 2-0, Jessup on the other side of the bracket, so they could just run heads on against each other. But for Sam, good run. Won't see him at the Players' Championship, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I really like Jim Davis's choice for this weekend. We've been talking for a couple weeks now about these Obs-on decks, these Sultai decks. They're not very good against Dissolve. It sounds like kind of a silly thing to say, but there's only so much meat in the deck. There's only a couple cards you really have to fight over. The rest of it's setup. And so playing with a lot of hard counter spells in this format is very good right now. There are some decks that will punish you for that because the fast decks will capitalize and Dissolve's not very efficient against them. But against these mid-range decks, the counter spells are super, super powerful.
All right, well, we do head back down to the match where we now will take a look at the sideboards here. You will see on Braverman's side, very straightforward stuff. 4 Race, 2 Doomweight Giant, 2 Magma Spray, 3 Arc Lightning, and what I imagine are in his deck, and 4 copies of Thoughtseize.
And I don't think anything else here is that exciting. I mean, he may want to bring in more Doomwakes just so he has more threats because he has so much removal that doesn't really do anything. Also, Doomweight Giant's pretty good against Elspeth. But light sideboarding. Definitely the Thoughtseizes, maybe the Doomwakes.
On the other side of things here for Davis, 2 Omen Speakers, 3 Erase, a Faded Retribution, a Last Breath, a Glare of Heresy, a Whelming Wave, 3 Bermaz King of Oreskos. We just saw one in the last game, and 3 Negates. We also saw one of those.
Yeah, I like the Negates, the Bermazes, the Faded Retribution, the Last Breath. Very good options. The Glare of Heresy, Jim's got a real sideboard.
Yeah. And Whelming Wave, you laugh, but he's playing against a token deck, and against a token deck, that's kind of just a Wrath.
Sure.
Yeah. It's the most obscure card in his sideboard, but he said it was actually quite good for him when I spoke with him.
Yeah, he was joking about it earlier too with me, but has definitely pulled its weight for him this weekend.
So chances are that's probably in the second to sideboard too, as these players are going to reconfigure a little bit as they have shifted roles. Mardu Token's going to be on the play here. And now that he's got maybe a better idea of what Jim has sideboarded in, perhaps Braverman will move some cards around. Keep in mind, Erase is okay against Jim's deck because Jim does have 4 copies of Banishing Light. So we might see 1 or 2 of those from
4
Braverman.
seems like a lot, but yeah, I could get behind bringing a few.
Yeah.
So the cards that Phillip has to get out of his deck, that's the important thing here. 4 Chain of the Rocks.
Ugh.
They got to go. Maybe he brings in keeps in a few now that he's seen Baz, but probably not. The Crackling Dooms, also questionable.
Those are expensive shocks.
Although, again, good insurance against Baz. The Arc Lightning, got to go. So we're looking at 9 cards that are of dubious quality.
Yeah.
4 Thoughtseizes, that's an easy upgrade. The 2 Doomweight Giants, I suppose, are good enough because of Elspeth and just the need for more threats. So that gets us to 6, so a couple of copies of Erase can come in. But the full 4 would surprise me.
The only full 4 that we're going to see here are Thoughtseize. You know those are.
Yeah, those are for sure in the deck.
Well, this is the final match here of our quarterfinal round of our Season 4 Invitational. If you are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan. We are here from Seattle, Washington at SCG Live. Hashtag SCGINVI for your tweets as we make it through Elimination Round Sunday, I guess we'll call it. We have to think of a better name for that.
Yes.
It's all elimination rounds all the time. We're covering the elimination rounds of this, our Invitational, and then our 2-day $20,000 Standard Open. We're coming into the day. We had Andrew Tenjum playing against Zach Jesse at table 1. We saw Ivan Jen at the top tables, Chris Van Meter as well. So some players that we have seen make deep runs or hoist trophies, looking to do so again in our Standard Open.
Looked like a pretty stacked day, too.
Yeah.
The top tables were loaded with players that I recognize.
There are around 450 players playing at our 2-day Standard Open. And again, for 2015, that's how we'll be doing our Opens all year long. So we look forward to seeing you guys in January in Columbus, where I expect to see a pretty large turnout.
Yes, I think it's going to be huge. 200 and change for the Legacy IQ today as well.
Yeah, for a dead format, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's
not-
almost like the format's not dead, and the difference between a 5K and a 10K probably doesn't affect tournament attendance all that much. Well, whatever.
That's not bad. I just say that's not bad at all for a format that is no longer alive. That's pretty good turnout.
Yeah. And you and I are responsible for pulling the trigger.
Oh, I was unaware.
Yeah, no.
We're the smoking guns?
Yeah. We did it. No, seriously, Legacy's great. We still got a lot of opens.
We'll have a Legacy Open in Philly, and I know that crowd and how much they love Legacy up there. So that'll be fun the second week of Season 1. So I have our premier Modern IQ going as well. 143 players doing battle in that. So a lot of players come out for Magic this weekend in Seattle. No surprise, though. Healthy Magic community here.
Yep, absolutely. Supporting so many dead formats. Well done, Seattle.
Absolutely.
Right in Wizards' backyard, no less.
We saw some Wizards employees here this weekend, too.
Yeah, I spoke with Sam Stoddard, Adam Prozac, two former hustlers of the Open Series, now R&D members. Eric Lauer, Worth Wolpert. I met his kid for the first time. Very nice kid.
Worth an Ohio native.
Yeah.
He knows.
A lot of WotC folk out of the Ohio, Pittsburgh area.
Yeah, we run to Seattle, as Ohio is just, well, it's great, but sometimes you just need to get away.
Sure.
A Nomad Outpost to start things off for Braverman, and Polluted Delta here for Davis. Butcher the Horde, the draw here for Braverman. See a Temple of Triumph and a couple other lands for him to choose from. He will go with the Temple. Take a look at the top card. Looks like it will be staying on top. And now Thoughtseize perhaps to clear the way. So Davis will pass his hand over and we will take a look.
Come on, share with the room.
We'll find a Nullified Dig Through Time, a Negate, another copy of Dig Through Time, a Polluted Delta, an Island, and a Radiant Fountain.
So there is a hole in this hand.
Yes.
Which is, if the Nullify is selected, no answers to creatures.
There also is a large lack of white mana.
Yeah, even saying that aside. And Jim's got to draw both, because I believe Phillip has Butcher in hand. So.
Thoughtseize will take care of Nullify. Braverman will likely record those contents, make sure he knows exactly what's in Jim's hand. Again, 2 Dig Through Times to negate, 3 lands, Delta, Island, Radiant Fountain. And Davis says, I will sacrifice this Delta immediately, get an Island out of my deck.
Yeah, no reason to hold on to it, and he does not want to draw Island right now.
No.
I think he will take Plains, I think he'll take Dissolve, I think he'll take Nullify, but not Island.
Davis will draw.
Attention, modern
Elspeth.
That is time for
Yuck.
round 1. Once again, modern players, that is time.
That ain't it either.
Yep.
And the player makes a turn, proceed to the end of match procedure.
Braverman will draw. I was going to say a card like Goblin Rebel Master would be fantastic right now, and there that is right off the top of his deck. That's going to come in along with the Goblin Token. Davis going to go down to 18. Let's make it 17 off of that fetch. And Jim Davis is in some serious trouble now. And Island is all he can search up with the Delta. He is blue-white control, not blue-black, and there are no hallowed fountains in this format.
Given the Butcher in Phillip's hand, Jim has to draw exceptionally well from here to have a shot. Because even if he draws white mana, he has no answers to what's going on.
Davis will draw. It's a Tranquil Cove. That's a start. He's going up to 18. But he's going to take a lot this turn. He'll head back Braverman's way. Braverman will draw. Looks like another copy of Nomad Outpost, perhaps. There's a Mountain. 3 and 4. Butcher of the Horde. Dare you to have a Disdainful Stroke, but you don't. Trigger. Sacrifice. A hasty Butcher now. So we'll attack for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All of a sudden, we're on a 2-turn clock here, folks.
Rabble Master and Butcher, two great tastes that taste great together.
Yeah.
The major incentive to play this Martyr deck.
Davis will draw. It's an Island. It was a risky keep here for Jim, hoping that Nullify could keep everything together.
This curve from Phillip is the disaster. I mean, Thoughtseize into Rabblemaster into Butcher with Jim's hand as soft as it was. It was a speculative keep, and Phillip's hand punished him to the maximum.
Radiant Fountain will bring Davis up to 11, but he can't even cast Dig Through Time right now. 4 lands in play, 3 cards in the graveyard. Braverman tapping mana perhaps for another Butcher. Yes, he will. Davis will consult the grip. That's in there. Trigger from Rabblemaster. In comes the Goblin token. That will be sacrificed to the new Butcher of the Horde. That one will have haste. And everybody's coming into the red zone, and Jim Davis will concede the game. So Phillip Braverman able to get a game in this best of 5. It's 2-1 in favor of Davis as we're heading on to game number 4.
And that's the recipe right there. In a lot of matchups, Mardu is the control deck. There's a lot of removal, a much more powerful late game. This is the opposite. Phillip has to be the beatdown here. His late game is nowhere near as good as Jim's. And so there's a lot of pressure on him to have Thoughtseize into a curve. And that's exactly what you saw right there.
So you see the sideboards there again for Braverman. Thoughtseize was very important. We expect to see all 4 of those in his deck after sideboard. Arc Lightning, not so much. Same can be said for Magma Spray. Maybe some number of erases. And it's unlikely that we'll see Doomwake Giant, though that is an answer to Elspeth.
I think that the Doomwake's come in because he's got too many bad cards in his deck.
Okay.
It's not like Doomwake's good in the matchup, though. As an anti-Elspeth measure, it's better than a lot of cards. But the 4 Chain of the Rocks, the 4 Crackling Dooms, and the Arc Lightnings are not palatable. Maybe some amount of that stuff stays in as a concession to Bramaz, but I think Phillip's got a lot of cards to cut, and Doomwake is better than those options.
See on Jim's side, 2 Omen Speaker, 3 Erase, that Faded Retribution, Last Breath, 3 Negates, 3 Bramaz, a Glare of Heresy, and a copy of Whelming Wave. A card like Whelming Wave in that game would have been actually pretty good to reset things and slow it down.
Yeah, it would have been nice.
So we'll see if anything does change on his side. Both players doing a little bit of re-sideboarding here. Don't forget, as far as results are concerned, Dylan Donegan has done it. Number 1 overall seed with Jeskai tokens has made it to the semifinals. He's going to Roanoke for our Players' Championship next weekend. He'll be playing against Caleb Scherer, playing White-Blue Heroic. That'll be one side of the semifinals. The other, Danny Jessup takes down Sam Black. Number 6 taking down number 3. I was on mid-range, very close to what Sean McLaren played at the World Championships in Nice last weekend. He'll be playing the winner of this match, either against Phillip Braverman or his good buddy and travel partner, Jim Davis.
I suspect that Danny would much prefer to play against Phillip and Jim. I don't think he wants any piece of a dissolve deck.
Sure. Well, we will find out as we do get prepared for game number 4. But we've talked about the 2015 Open Series, and we will take a look at the Season 1 schedule here as these players do finish shuffling up. As well, it's basically already here. Season 1 of 2015, the first Open Series event is actually taking place behind us right now. But as far as the calendar is concerned, we'll start in January in Columbus.
And you can see that the schedule is updated to reflect what opens are going to be what format as the primary open. Remember, anytime that we have an open of format A, it means the IQs on Sunday are B and C, so every format supported. Standard in Columbus, Legacy in Philadelphia the following weekend. 2 weekends later, Standard in DC, Legacy in Indianapolis the following weekend. We go to Houston for the first time in Open Series history. That will be Standard alongside with Los Angeles the following weekend. Baltimore, our first modern Open Series event, the end of the month. Standard Grand Prix Miami, March 6th through 8th. Make sure to stay tuned to MagicGP.com for more information as we get closer to the event. The following weekend, we will be in Dallas, which will also be Standard, and then the Season 1 Invitational, Standard for the Open Series, Standard and Legacy as the Invitational formats in Richmond. Meet you in Matthias.
Looking forward to all those dates as we kill one format at a time.
Yep. Soon, only, I guess, booster draft, maybe sealed.
Pauper, fire that up.
Yep. Bring your own block, constructed.
BYOB, huh?
Yeah. That used to be a thing at Invitation.
I know. I remember that happening at Gen Con a couple of times. Yeah, bring your own block, BYOB.
Yep. You want to be playing with the cards from Urza's block.
That's a good start. Yeah, that's a good start.
Maybe the cards from Wrath Cycle. That's a fine one, too.
So you don't want Mercadian Mass. You don't want Rising Waters.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I just want to...
You can die way before turn 4.
Ah, that's early.
Yep, that's too fast for Rising Waters.
That's quick. I bet
Rising Waters. Okay, I guess I'll just untap my Academy that makes 15 mana. Okay.
I bet that was a delightful format.
There's a block constructed.
Both. That and Mercadian Mass
That was
block.
my first PTQ format, Mercadian Mass Constructed.
Nice. Very nice.
I would describe it, I guess, as wildly unplayable.
Okay. That's one way to define it.
Yeah. So first of all, there's no mana fixing. There's none. You want
Nice.
to play a 2-color deck, you got, 15 forests and 11 swamps. That's what your mana base looks like.
Okay.
And most of the strategies slowly lock you out of the game.
No mana fixing is. No, I like that a lot.
Yeah. Go look at Ben Rubin's deck from the Block Pro Tour. I believe his mana base was something like 11 forests, 10 plains, 1 Rashad Import.
Figure it out. I bet he had a good tournament too.
He cashed.
Yeah, of course he did. It's Ben Rubin.
Ben Rubin's the master.
Hall of Famer.
One of the all-time greats. He said he lost a lot to Rashad Import in that tournament
Shocking.
because he was regularly land and color screwed as a result.
Davis is going to keep his 7. Braverman's going to take a mulligan. Someone on Twitter actually earlier this week asked me if Rashad and Port should be reprinted.
Nope.
I did not dignify that with the response.
Nope.
The answer is no.
See, I can understand how it goes to print because it says, you trade 2 mana for one of your opponents. Why would that be a good deal? But that's a flawed way of looking at it. It's you have the option of making that exchange whenever you want to at a very low opportunity cost.
And if you don't want to, you don't have to.
Exactly. Now that's way too good. How often, if you could just press a button that said, I'm down 2 mana and my opponent's down a mana, would you push the button?
A lot.
I'd hit that button a ton.
Myself personally, I would push that button a lot.
Every deck I've ever built would just push that button.
Let's see if Braverman can find a better 6 here. And the answer is no. He's going down to 5. So after a real beatdown in game number 3, Braverman's going to have his hand line up pretty well here to send it to game number 5.
Attention modern premiering players.
Particularly against Jim's deck, which is so good at handling individual cards.
Yeah.
I think this matchup is tough for Phillip, even in the best of circumstances.
It's just his deck isn't, I don't think, geared to beat this sort of deck. But to be fair, I don't think many decks are geared to beat this sort of deck this weekend. I think it was a great choice.
Yep. Perhaps the end of the line for Team Braverman, but we shall see.
We'll see what Phillip can dial up here for his 5. Last match of our quarterfinals here, so we will have our announcement of our premium winner at the conclusion of this quarterfinal round. We only have 1 game left. If Braverman's able to tie this matchup up, it's going to be off the back of a very, very good 5-card mulligan.
Thought Season to Rabble Master, I think, has got to be the game plan here, and hope that Jim's hand just has a hole in it. We saw it in game 3.
Tranquil Cove is where Davis will start. He's up 21. Braverman does have a Thought Season in his hand. There's also a Wingmate Rock hiding out. Picked up a copy of Hordeling Outburst. We'll start by playing a Nomad Outpost and pass the turn back over to Davis. Davis will draw. Copy of Radiant Fountain. He will play that Radiant Fountain. He's up to 23. Now it's time for perhaps Old Omen
Ooh.
Speaks.
Beatdown City.
Thinking maybe more about the Scry.
I don't think Jim has another colored land in his hand. I think he
Neither
just
do
has a Radiant Fountain.
There's a Delta and a Dissolve.
Well.
Interesting.
I think with Bramaz in hand, I think he has to take the 3rd color land here. He's a little light on mana anyway. Jim just trying to see what his curve looks like.
I think I put Delta on top, Dissolve on bottom, with the ability to just shuffle Dissolve away if something changes.
So you keep both.
I keep both, yeah.
That makes sense, because the option to draw Dissolve could be really nice,
Yep.
but you aren't committed to it.
Braverman draws a copy of Stoke the Flames. This is a Thoughtseize. That is resolving.
All right, modern players.
and Hostilities, Elspeth, Bermaz, Negate, Radiant Fountain.
You have 50 minutes.
Those are the 5 cards that Braverman is looking at. He'll get to select 1. Go down to 18 in the process.
Not the best hand, though, for Jim, especially since he's missing double weight.
I think in this situation, though, Braverman will take a look at his hands. Probably just want to take Bermaz, especially when your opponent left both cards on top. Though you don't know what those cards are. I think maybe your assumption is, well, you probably left the white mana on top, maybe another white mana.
Well, the question's also going to be, what's my hope to win this game? And I think a reasonable line of play is saying, you know what? I take Negate here, hope he can't cast the Bermaz, hope he misses his land drops for a long time, and maybe there's some hope. Though, as you mentioned, leaving on top with the Scry probably does not bode too well for that plan.
Mountain and a pass there for Braverman as we head over to Davis's 3rd turn of the game. You saw him draw his Polluted Delta. We know the top card of his deck is a Dissolve, though for how long is the question as he deploys the fetch land. And he will just pass the turn back.
Not attacking out of respect for Goblin Rabblemaster.
Which was the draw for the turn. The question is, does Braverman have land number 3? Looks like the answer is no. The grip right now, Hordling Outburst, Thoughtseize, Wingmate Rock, Stoke the Flames, and the aforementioned Goblin Rabblemaster. And now in this instance, if I'm Davis, I'm drawing that Dissolve.
For sure.
Yep.
And Phillip electing not to Thoughtseize that turn because he knows Jim is just sitting on Negate.
Yep.
So he wants to try to overwhelm his mana in 1 turn.
Radiant Fountain got to come down. Up to 25 goes Davis. He's still sitting steady here. We'll see if Omen Speaker feels like getting a little frisky. The answer is no.
Omen Speaker is such a good answer to Rabblemaster that I like not attacking here because it means that Jim doesn't have to dissolve it if it comes up.
Caves of Koilos is the draw. That's land number 3 here for Braverman. Braverman slides that Goblin Rabblemaster forward. Looks like he wants to cast that one. Or will it be Hordling Outburst instead? It will be Rabblemaster. Davis will consult his hand. We know he's got the Dissolve over there. And Hostilities, Negate, and Elspeth. Those are the 4 cards he's looking at.
And I feel like if Jim was playing defense with the Omen Speaker, he has no intent on countering this. Though perhaps I'm wrong.
Might just feel a little safer just not having that thing on the table.
With then Hostilities in hand and not a lot going on, I feel like I would let this go. I just assumed that the no attacks with the Omen Speaker was a concession to this card.
He's going to Dissolve. It's time for him to scry. We'll take a look. Consult the hand before figuring out where he wants to place that card. And it's going to stay on top, so it must be a good one. As Davis will untap. Draw a card. Let's see what he finds. Tranquil Cove.
Yep.
Just working his way towards Elspeth now.
And a second white source of mana for and Hostilities and Elspeth.
Up to 25 he goes. Passing of the turn. Braverman will untap those 3 lands. Time for him to draw a card. Picks up a copy of Bloodstained Mire, so he's working his way out of those mana issues. See if he wants to lead out with the Thoughtseize here.
Okay. Still aware of Negate. Trying to overwhelm mana. Really important to know how to do that when playing against decks with a bunch of counter spells.
There is Thoughtseize. And Jim says, I will cast Negate on that, protecting his Elspeth. There's Bloodstained Mire, sacrifice that. Braverman's going to go to 17. We'll see Hordling Outburst here in just a moment.
But there is a path here for Phillip. If this Hordling Outburst resolves, it gives him the attackers necessary to trigger the raid on the Wingmate Rock if he hits land number 5. And that would at least force Jim to use the end Hostilities. And then we're playing top of deck against top of deck with Jim having an Elspeth. Things are looking bleak, but for a mulligan to 5, it's at least something.
There is the outburst. 3 Goblin tokens incoming. And a passing of the turn. Back to Davis, who will untap. He's got 5 lands and an Omen Speaker. He'll draw a card. It's a Temple of Enlightenment. That's land number 6. It doesn't come into play on tap for the Elspeth. Davis with the ability to cast End Hostilities this turn if he'd like. Looks like he may start with a Temple, though.
Seems not that much merit to casting the End Hostilities because Omen Speaker has these tokens checked. The Elspeth will also do that the following turn.
Top card to the bottom.
Find your bearings, find your seats.
Davis will take a look at the situation and just pass the turn back. So Braverman will untap those 4 lands. He's got 3 Goblin tokens to play from Horn in the Outburst. He will draw a card. It's a copy of Bloodstained Mire. Stoke the Flames and a Wingmate Rock, the other cards in his hand at the moment.
And Phillip's hand might be forced here. I don't know if he can just say go.
I mean, he knows about the 2 cards in Davis's hand.
Yep, but I feel like he's got to just get through the End Hostilities.
Yeah. Yeah, the big question here is, can you win the game this way? Take a draw. Tranquil Cove is what it looks like, but it's actually a copy of Flooded Strand.
The old dual lands that go into the same set that will appear in the same decks have very similar artwork.
They do. They do. It's land number 7 either way. And Davis, content just passing the turn. So a bit of a staring contest here, perhaps. Does that surprise you?
A little bit. It seems like a pretty good spot to punch in Elspeth.
Looks like Braverman's going to cast a Stoke the Flames here. Go after that Omen Speaker.
An SCG first.
Maybe an SCG last.
Well, it does put Phillip in a position where he can start pressuring with the tokens without deploying the Waymate Rock.
Yeah, which is where you want to be.
Yeah.
This is round number 3 of 8. Legacy players.
Braverman will draw a copy of Battlefield Forge. Here come the beatdowns. Davis going to go to 22. Those lands that gain life in this deck, Tranquil Cove and Radiant Fountain, play a huge role.
When we had Jim Davis on camera in the Swiss rounds defeating Mono Red, they were a huge deal.
Bramas, King of Arrest goes the draw.
Perhaps the not tapping out for Elspeth last turn was out of respect for Butcher of the Horde.
Reasonable. Hey, he's got something else in mind this game. There's Bramas. Pass the turn.
And I think Jim's sort of taking this position of, I don't really care about any of this stuff. The 2 cards in my hand are extremely powerful. I'm not going to trade them for things that aren't a big prize out of you. So right now, Bramas holds down these tokens. He's going to ask more of Phillip before he's willing to deploy the End Hostilities or the Elspeth.
And with 2 Thought Seizes out of the way, you can feel at least pretty confident that, okay, chances of, you going after my hand and getting these cards, kind of unlikely just playing the percentages there.
Yep.
There's
Not
a
only
swamp.
that, but there's 2 of them. There's 2 prizes in that hand.
Yep. Braverman going to go on a 16 from that Bloodstained Mire. Crackling Doom still in the deck.
I figured there'd be some amount of this going on because there's just not enough cards to board in, especially when Phillip sees the Braverman come in.
Perhaps he brought these in. And Davis will bluff a counterspell here, but this is going to resolve. So his Braverman is dead. He'll take 2. He'll go down to 20. And now we're back in the same situation we were in. Now he's going to go down to 17. Will he ever make a move with this Elspeth or this End Hostilities as he draws a card? It's a copy of Evolving Wilds.
Phillip doing a very good job here of, even on a mulligan to 5, rationing his cards. Now the risk here is there's a lot of powerful draws in Jim's deck, especially Jason's Ingenuity, once he takes this line of play. But he is content to wait.
In we come. Davis really using his life total as a resource here. Going down to 14 now, and Braverman refusing to play Wingmate Rock, which I think is very smart. I mean, you just can't when you know your opponent has End Hostilities.
Yep.
Davis going to search up an island with his Evolving Wilds. See the life totals here. 16 for Braverman, 14 for Davis. Game number 4 is where we're at. 90 minutes into this match.
And it's clear to Phillip what Jim's strategy is at this point because he's still informed because of the Thoughtseize. So that's doing a lot to sculpt Phillip's line of play as well. Jim's saying, I'm not doing anything just yet. And so Phillip's in this position of, well, let's see if I can apply a reasonable amount of pressure without deploying my valuable threats.
Glare of Heresy, the draw.
Starts at 30 minutes. If you would like to play counter target to your shield, that starts at 30 minutes.
When to pull the trigger on Elspeth is the question. Because I imagine what Jim would like to do is pull the trigger on that with counterspell in hand. In a perfect world, that's what he'd have the opportunity to do.
Yeah.
But how low is he willing to go? Is he willing to get End Hostilities for these 3 tokens? That should be trading 1 for 1. 1 card Hordeling Outburst for 1 card Hordeling Outburst. Or 1 card End Hostilities.
It's a really gutsy play because there's some follow-up threats that Phillip can have where the Elspeth's not good enough. He can play a Butcher and give it haste. He can have Doomweight Giants.
Passing again.
I think Jim is just saying there's enough good draws in my deck that I don't have to do anything just yet. If I find a counterspell, if I find a Jason's Ingenuity, I can blow this game wide open.
Attack for 3. Davis is going to go down to 11. Dig Through Time falls in that camp as well.
Absolutely.
Down to 10. See if there'll be an island or plains here for Davis. Looks like it may be an island. It's got a lot of white mana out there after all.
Jim is taking some risks this game. Definitely has pursued an unorthodox line of play. But if he draws one of his big spells, he gets rewarded big time.
Let's see what he draws here. Dissolve. Now he's 1 land away from being able to play Elspeth and Dissolve in the same turn. Perhaps that's what he's been trying to set up all along. Though he does have the ability now to cast End Hostilities with Dissolve available. So perhaps he has some interest in that.
Because these points of damage that Jim's taking here, they are not free.
They add
He's
up.
playing against Stoke the Flames, Crackling Doom.
There's End Hostilities. Looks like he was just waiting for a counterspell all along. He finally found one. Pass the turn back. Braverman's going to draw. Picked up a copy of Butcher of the Horde. He'll go reaching. He'll take 1 to play a Wingmate Rock. Davis going to take a look at his Dissolve and his Glare of Heresy and say, how do I want to handle this 3/4 flyer?
I think the Dissolve is so precious that if I'm Jim, I'm probably willing to say that resolves. Untap and get it with the Glare.
It's a passing of the turn over to Davis. We'll see what his draw is now. That's a copy of Divination. That's a big one. That's a great place to start.
That is a beautiful, beautiful card for Jim to draw here. So he gets to Glare, he gets to Divination, and still leave up Dissolve mana.
And does he feel the coast is clear enough to deploy Elspeth, I think, is the big question here.
Maybe, maybe not, but I think that Divination plus Dissolve is so attractive that Jim does not have to take the risk.
There's the div. 2 cards coming. Elspeth is 1. Nullify is 2. And now he's starting to finally turn the corner. Crackling Doom the draw here. 4 mana. Butcher of the Horde. Not a bad spot to nullify.
I think Jim is going to nullify. I was about to say, I think he might be contemplating just saying Elspeth and minus it.
Yeah.
But if this Elspeth is his path to victory, I don't think he wants to expose it to a burn spell. Even Crackling Doom would take care of it, so.
Disdainful Stroke the draw. Jim able to actually cast Elspeth now too, because if this one's taken care of, he's got 1 in reserve.
Yeah.
Gonna tick up to 5. Play a Soldier Token and see. What's interesting about this game is just the fact that he could have played Elspeth a long time ago.
Several turns ago. But he was not willing to allow Phillip to exchange resources in a positive manner.
And that might be the way that Jim actually goes about losing the game is, by deploying Elspeth early, Braverman has a window there to maybe run himself into like some perfect draw steps and win.
Well, if Phillip has Butcher of the Horde that turn to take care of Elspeth, now you're in a position where you have to end hostilities, and now it's your top of your deck against the top of Phillip's deck.
Yeah.
No reason to run that risk.
And he refused to do that.
He has so many good draws that both of them being in a holding pattern is very good for Jim. His deck's more powerful, and Phillip is unlikely to get in a position where he can chain together 2 meaningful spells in the same turn because his meaningful cards all cost too much.
It was an unorthodox line, but it looks like it's one that has worked out here for Davis. This is a Wingmate Rock. That's a Disdainful Stroke.
And now Jim can be so aggressive with these counters because he knows there's no follow-up.
Yep.
Phillip's deck, all the good stuff is 4 or 5 mana.
Negates the draw along with the Dissolve. Now he's coming in for 3. And we'll see him pick up his pace now. 3 more Soldier Tokens, Elspeth up to 6. He'll pass it over.
The end is near. He can sense it.
I think it may have been a copy of Raise the Alarm here for Braverman.
Which naturally lines up very nicely with the negate that Jim just drew.
Indeed.
If Jim feels that it's negate worthy, which he probably does not. As he has the option here of just pumping the brakes and getting to Elspeth's ultimate.
Butcher of the Horde. Braverman will take 1 to cast it. Does Davis care? With the Elspeth on the table, he may not.
The issue is, if he uses the Dissolve here, then Doomwave Giant is a card that might matter.
Yep. And he will use Dissolve.
This is not risk-free.
Time to scry.
But the Butcher of the Horde in play is really awkward for Jim, so I think this is fine.
And Hostility is going to go to the bottom. Pass the turn back. Will Braverman over to Davis. Davis will draw a card. Jace's Ingenuity is what he's found. He'll attack for 6. Braverman will take that 6. He's down to 3. Elspeth will tick up. 3 more soldiers incoming. And a passing of the turn. Raise the alarm here for Braverman. Davis looking at a negate. Does he care?
The negate kind of, the raise the alarm kind of makes Butcher of the Horde matter, but Phillip's just dying.
Yeah.
On the next attack. Maybe this is counterworthy because if Phillip follows up with Butcher, he can give haste and lifelink, and then you play on for a little while.
It'd be a slight annoyance. Jim consulting things here. Maybe considering casting Jace's Ingenuity in response.
I think Jim can use some information here because this Raise the Alarm may be just annoying enough to be worth the negate.
A lot of Magic players, when they're behind, they play their hearts out, but it's important to do the same when you're playing ahead, too.
Yep. Jim's in, I'm over 99% to win this game. Let's make it 100.
Yeah. He'll let Raise the Alarm resolve. 2 soldier tokens incoming. Time for Braverman to draw a copy of Hordeling Outburst. The other cards in his hand are 2 copies of Crackling Doom. Is that going to do it? Jim Davis is going to win this match here over Phillip Braverman 3-1. Blue-White Control takes care of Mardu tokens, and Davis will be moving on to the semifinals to play against his good friend and travel partner, Danny Jessup, who's playing Abzan midrange.
A marathon affair, probably 2 of our slower decks in the top 8. Jim very methodical, but wanted to make no mistakes there. Took a bunch of unorthodox lines of play and was rewarded for the way that Game 4 played out.
Congratulations to Jim Davis and Phillip Braverman on one heck of a tournament, but it will be number 8 on our Season 4 leaderboard, and a player who is moving on to the Players' Championship next weekend in Roanoke. Jim Davis doing battle against Danny Jessup here in just a moment, as we'll bring it back to the booth, as we do have 3 months of trivia to